What sort of situation would call for somebody to possibly take a magnesium supplement, first of all? We know that magnesium is extremely calming for the mind and the central nervous system. So if your central nervous system is a little bit too high, you're finding it hard to sleep, you're a bit anxious, magnesium is a fantastic go-to for that. And there are certain ones that are going to be better for that. I really like magnesium threonate and magnesium glycinate. They're really fantastic. But I'll go more into that in a moment. Magnesium is also a really fantastic mineral cofactor for a lot of our metabolic processes. So I would say that anybody that needs metabolism support or methylation support should probably be on a magnesium too. But what are the best magnesiums to take? So when we're thinking about which magnesium is the best to take, we need to be considering how it's absorbed through our gastrointestinal system. So imagine we eat some food with magnesium in it, or we take a supplement, that's going to pass through our gut. Now we need to remember that the cells of our gut are just one layer thick. And what magnesium really likes to do is it likes to go paracellularly. So that means it likes to go between the cells. It can be absorbed through the cell, but mainly it's going to be absorbed between the cells of the gut, and that will then get into our blood system and then pass throughout the body and go to the cells that is needed. But one thing about magnesium that's really interesting is it's really hydrophilic, which means it really, really loves water. And in fact, the actual size of the magnesium molecule, Mg2+, can actually expand to like 200 times the size of itself when it gets exposed to water, because it just loves to hold on to that water so much. Now, if you imagine that magnesium really wants to pass between the cells paracellularly to get into our bloodstream, but once it's bound to all that water, the size of the molecule becomes really quite large and it can't pass through very easily between the cells unless you've got a lot of leaky gut, unfortunately. So it's going to kind of get stuck within the lumen of our gut. So certain magnesiums, like for example, unchelated or magnesium citrate, magnesium oxide, are actually really good at that. And that's why these types of magnesium, especially magnesium citrate, are really good at helping to loosen stools up and push them through. So often people will sort of say, if you have really bad constipation, you might want to take a magnesium citrate because it helps to soften the stool, because it's dragging the water towards it, it's forming a bond with that water, and then of course the stool becomes more watery. And often you might be put on a magnesium supplement and you're like, oh, my stools are suddenly too loose, I'm getting diarrhea. This is why. It's likely because it's got a lot of magnesium citrate, it's drawing water towards it, and then it's getting pushed out as a very watery stool. The problem with this though is that if you wanted the calming effects in the brain, for example, of the magnesium, or even the muscle, whatever it is, that magnesium staying in the gut and it's not actually being absorbed into the bloodstream, so it's never going to make its way into the cells like you want it to. It's just going to cause diarrhea. As I said, this is really great in constipation situations, but not if you want it in your central nervous system. So what sort of magnesium should you take then if you're wanting it to actually get into the bloodstream and through to the rest of the body? You're going to need a chelated magnesium. So what happens is when we chelate the magnesium, or other minerals can have the same sort of effect, it's going to tightly bound to the magnesium at all the points that the water usually would, and it stops the water from binding. So this means that the molecule itself will stay small enough to be able to still move paracellularly through the cells and get into the bloodstream so that it can have its effects. Certain magnesiums are better for this, and so if you were to look at the back of the ingredients label on a magnesium supplement, you want to make sure that you're getting chelated magnesium. Two types of magnesium that I really like to see is magnesium glycinate, and my favorite is magnesium glycerol phosphate. There's not a whole lot of lit on the magnesium glycerol phosphate yet. It's kind of a newer molecule that people are starting to learn about, but it's looking to be really, really useful because it's also able to cross the blood-brain barrier very nicely. So it means that if you are struggling with, high central nervous system activity, you're a bit anxious, a bit sort of like wound up, you can't sleep, the magnesium glycerol phosphate could be your go-to. I also quite like magnesium threonate because that is also able to cross the blood-brain barrier. So just as an overall summary, when you're thinking about getting a magnesium, you need to make sure that the magnesium is chelated, and you'll often see that on the ingredients label. If it's not, it could cause diarrhea. If you're wanting it to help with constipation, then you don't need to worry about this. Some really good ones that I really like to use are magnesium glycinate, magnesium glycerol phosphate, and magnesium threonate, because they are able to better get into our central nervous system and have their effects.